The UK has registered a daily record of more than 78,000 cases of coronavirus, the highest since the pandemic began. The number exceeds by 10,000 the previous record in January. The UK's chief medical officer warned many more records would be broken over the next few weeks. President Biden's announced the US federal government will cover the entire cost of 30 days of clear-up in the state of Kentucky following Friday's devastating tornadoes. Mr. Biden described the destruction there as almost beyond belief. At least 74 people died in Kentucky and 14 others in other states. And the influential black feminist known as Bell Hooks has died at the age of 69. The author, professor, poet and activist wrote dozens of books. She died at her home in Kentucky, surrounded by family and friends.
Policymakers at the U.S. Federal Reserve say they're going to end their bond purchase program in March. The move is aimed at curbing inflation and will take place sooner and faster than originally planned.
We are phasing out our purchases more rapidly because with elevated inflation pressures and a rapidly strengthening labor market, the economy no longer needs increasing amounts of policy support.
The central bank had been buying $120 billion a month in government bonds to provide liquidity to the financial markets. The purchases will be scaled back at double the pace every month. After wrapping up the two-day meeting on Wednesday, the officials also predicted hikes in the benchmark short-term interest rate, which has been kept near zero. All 18 policymakers indicated that at least one increase would be appropriate before the end of 2022. 10 predicted 3 rate rises. U.S. inflation has risen to its highest level in almost 4 decades, coming in at 6.8% in November. Powell had earlier called the trend transitory, but he dropped that description in his announcement on Wednesday. Share prices in Tokyo have rallied on the back of the Fed announcement. The Nikkei average kicked off the morning session nearly 400 points higher than Wednesday's close. It went above the 29,000 level at one stage for the first time in nearly 3 weeks. U.S. benchmarks also reacted to the news, ending sharply higher on Wednesday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 35,927, up nearly 400 points. Analysts say investors believe the policy shift has erased some uncertainty over the economy's direction. Their prime worry is the impact of inflation rather than a reduction of Fed stimulus. Japan has posted a trade deficit for the 4th month in a row. This comes as imports in November hit the highest in yen terms since 1979, when the current method for tracking was introduced. The finance ministry said imports jumped over 40% in yen terms last month compared to a year ago. It was the 10th straight month that the figure rose. Rising crude oil prices led to a sharp increase in the overall value. Exports were also up, but by a smaller margin. They rose more than 20%. This was mainly due to increases in shipments of semiconductor machinery to China and steel to the rest of Asia. But car exports to the U.S. were down. Overall, last month's trade balance came in at a deficit of over $8 billion. The Japanese government has agreed to pay damages to the widow of a former finance ministry official who took his own life after being forced to falsify documents. A lawsuit filed by the woman ended abruptly on Wednesday after the government changed course and accepted liability. She criticized the sudden move to settle as cowardly. Akagi Toshio, who worked in the ministry's regional bureau in Osaka, died by suicide in 2018. He had been pressured to falsify official documents relating to the sale of state-owned land to school operator Moritomo Gakuen at well below market value. The transaction drew criticism because then Prime Minister Abe Shinzo's wife was named an honorary principal of an elementary school to be built at the site. Akagi's widow, Masako, filed a lawsuit accusing the government of responsibility for his death and seeking about $940,000 in damages. The government initially indicated it would fight the lawsuit. but her lawyers say it reversed its position and agreed to full payment at a closed-door meeting at the Osaka District Court on Wednesday. The government admitted responsibility for Akagi's death, saying he was subjected to prolonged excessive mental stress. It said he had to follow orders he strongly opposed and deal with requests for public disclosure of information related to the land deal. The government says the court case should not have been made to drag on. It says it fully accepts the widow's demands in light of the gravity of falsifying official documents. The end of the case dashed Akagi Masako's hope of shedding light on the facts that led to her husband's death.
The government ended the case in a cowardly manner. What can I tell my husband? I feel frustrated that the trial ended in such a way.
Japan's finance minister apologized for causing Akagi's death and said the government was acting in good faith.
I would like to offer my deepest apologies for the fact that Mr. Akagi felt he had to choose suicide and offer my deepest condolences. I think we have been doing our best to deal with the matter as carefully as possible through the court, including the submission of new documents.
Speaking to lawmakers on Thursday, Prime Minister Kishida Fumio emphasized the need for transparency.
I think it is important to explain the matter sincerely to the public.
A separate lawsuit the widow filed against a former head of the Finance Ministry department that signed the controversial deal is still ongoing. She had accused Sagawa Nobuhisa of ordering the document tampering. Germany is expelling 2 Russian diplomats after a court found Moscow ordered the killing of a Georgian man in Berlin. The 40-year-old Georgian citizen was shot dead in a park in Berlin in August 2019. A 56-year-old Russian man was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. In its Wednesday ruling, the German court noted that the victim had fought against the Russian military as a commander for Chechen independence. It called the killing an act of state terrorism. The German Foreign Ministry then told Russia's ambassador 2 members of his staff would be expelled.
This murder, carried out on state orders, as was ruled by the court today, is a serious violation of German law and of Germany's sovereignty.
Germany had already expelled 2 Russian diplomats over the case in December 2019. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he will attend the opening ceremony of the Beijing Winter Olympic Games in February. This comes as some countries, including the U.S. and Britain, have announced a diplomatic boycott of the Games.
We invariably support each other on issues of international sports cooperation, including rejection of any attempts to politicize sports and the Olympic movement.
The announcement came on Wednesday during Putin's online summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Xi said that certain international forces under the guise of democracy and human rights are interfering in the internal affairs of the 2 countries. He suggested this may violate international law. He added China and Russia should increase their joint efforts to more effectively safeguard the security interests of both countries. Media reports say Xi told Putin that he expects to meet him in person on the sidelines of the Games. The U.S. Senate has passed a $768 billion defense bill. This includes $7 billion for a deterrence initiative in the Indo-Pacific region. The outlay is more than triple the amount allocated in the previous fiscal year. The deterrence initiative is aimed at countering China's military buildup. The Senate voted overwhelmingly for the bill, which lays out defense spending for fiscal 2022. It includes a statement of congressional support for the defense of Taiwan. The bill bans the Department of Defense from buying products produced with forced labor in China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The bill also includes $300 million to support Ukraine's military amid escalating tensions with Russia, as well as $4 billion to boost defense initiatives in Europe. The legislation has already passed the House of Representatives and now goes to President Joe Biden to sign. Lithuanian diplomats have left China amid soured relations with Beijing over Taiwan. The Baltic States Foreign Ministry said its mission in China would return for consultations. It said the Lithuanian embassy will continue its operations remotely. The ministry told NHK embassy personnel had to return because of uncertainties over their legal status. A European Commission spokesperson said all Lithuanian diplomatic staff and their families left Beijing on Wednesday morning.
The repatriation of Lithuanian diplomatic staff and their relatives is a sovereign decision by the Lithuanian authorities on what is best for its mission and its staff.
Earlier this month, Lithuania appealed to the European Commission for support after China blocked its exports to the country. Taiwan opened a representative office in the capital, Vilnius, last month. China responded by downgrading its ties with Lithuania. Lithuania says it's ready to continue dialogue with China and restore the embassy functions once a mutually beneficial agreement has been reached. Meanwhile, Taiwan's foreign ministry released a statement expressing the, quote, highest respect to the Lithuanian government and its diplomatic decision-making despite unceasing diplomatic and economic threats from the Chinese government, unquote. It adds that Taiwan reiterates its pledge to stand with Lithuania. Now turning to world weather with our meteorologist Yoko Komagata. Yoko, we're seeing a strong typhoon there approaching the Philippines' east coast. What are the major concerns?
So Typhoon Rai is likely to become an even stronger system as it moves closer to the Visayas. So people along the coastal areas may be facing dangerous storm surges. Rai is expected to make landfall in the Visayas or Mindanao by Thursday afternoon local time. You'll see sustained winds of up to 162 kilometers per hour and waves could reach 10 meters high. The outer band of the storm has already produced downpours in the northern tip of Mindanao. Additional rainfall of up to 300 millimeters is likely along with the storm system, so there is a high chance for flooding and landslides. Meanwhile, a strong cold wave is covering a good portion of Northeast Asia. At the same time, a frontal system stretching eastern China toward Japan will produce widespread showers. The cold wave will also produce a huge drop in temperatures. On Friday, highs will drop from 10 degrees to minus 3 degrees in Seoul. Tokyo will have rain on Friday and will have much colder temperatures by the weekend. The western U.S. has been dealing with a major winter storm this week that has led to some flooding. Downpours affected the drought-hit California on Tuesday, increasing the risk of mudslides. Authorities ordered the evacuation of some residents because of a danger of floods and debris flows. A car was seen submerged, but the water moved too fast for firefighters to attempt any rescues. Parts of California will have more rain with a chance of further flooding. Winter storm warnings are still in effect in the Cascades and the Sierra Nevadas, where up to 70 centimeters is likely. LA will continue to see some rain on Thursday with a high of 13 degrees. Vancouver and Seattle will also have wet weather for the next couple of days. That's all for now. Have a nice day.